someone is awake right now thinking about you. Not in the pleasant, warm, everything is fine way of someone whose thoughts of you produce a comfortable, even enjoyable quality of preoccupation. In the specific, slightly restless, I cannot stop turning this over in my mind way that belongs to someone for whom you have become a question they cannot currently answer, a situation they cannot currently resolve, a dynamic they are trying to understand or navigate or figure out, and failing in the specific, frustrating way of someone who is accustomed to being able to figure things out and who has encountered in you something that is consistently not fully resolving into legibility. The losing sleep is not a metaphor. The turning over in the mind is literal. And the stress that the title names is not general life stress. It is specific. It is about you. And what makes it interesting, what makes this reading carry the slight quality of the paradoxical that the subtitle is pointing toward, is that this person is genuinely not fully sure what it is about you that is producing the effect it is producing. They have been trying to identify it, going back through interactions, through things you said and how you said them, through moments when you were simply being yourself and not thinking about being observed, looking for the specific thing that produced the specific disruption in their ordinary experience of their own interior that they have been living with since encountering you. They have not found a clean answer because the clean answer does not exist. What they are experiencing is not the result of something specific you did. It is the result of what you simply are. Let me show you what the cards confirmed. Let me describe what I felt the moment this energy opened, because the specific quality of it tells the fuller story of what is actually happening in this person. I felt a specific quality of agitation that is different from the agitation of anger or of grief or of ordinary anxiety. The specific, restless, slightly compulsive quality of someone whose mind keeps returning to something despite having resolved to move on from it. The specific experience of deciding to stop thinking about something and then finding 20 minutes later that you have been thinking about it anyway, on a loop, with a quality of returning to it from slightly different angles each time, as though the right angle of approach will finally produce the clarity that has been evading all the other angles. I also felt something underneath that agitation that I want to name carefully because it is the more important of the two impressions. I felt fascination. The genuine, involuntary, I have not chosen, this quality of fascination that arrives when someone encounters something in another person that genuinely exceeds the capacity of their usual frameworks to account for. The specific experience of being in the presence of something that is more than what you were prepared to encounter, that is what has been producing the lost sleep. The first card in this reading arrived in the position representing what this person has been experiencing since encountering you, the specific interior state that the title of the reading is describing. And I want to describe it precisely because the precision illuminates something important. This card shows a figure seated upright in bed at night, with 9 swords arranged on the wall above them, face in their hands in the specific posture of someone whose mind will not grant them the peace that sleep requires. This is the card of the restless, circling, will not stop processing mind. of someone who is in the grip of a thought pattern that has its own momentum and that does not respond to the intention to stop, of rumination that does not produce conclusion, of the specific experience of being unable to put something down even when continuing to pick it up is producing no useful result. What I am reading in this card about what this person has been experiencing is something I want to name specifically. They have been in an uncomfortable loop, returning to you, to the question of you, to the specific thing that is producing the disruption without finding the resolution that would allow the loop to complete and the mind to move on. The discomfort is not primarily emotional, though there is emotion in it. It is primarily cognitive. The mind has encountered something it cannot fully categorize, and it cannot rest until it can. I also want to speak to what the sword suit tells me about the nature of what is happening in this person. The swords govern the mind and its relationship to truth and to understanding. What is keeping this person awake is not primarily a feeling, it is a question. The specific cognitive, what is this and what does it mean quality of someone whose analytical capacity has been applied fully to the question of you and has not yet produced the satisfying resolution that their analytical capacity typically produces when it is applied to things. That failure to resolve is itself the information. The second card arrived in the position representing what specifically about you has produced this particular quality of preoccupation. And I want to be precise here because I think you deserve to understand exactly what it is that has gotten under this person's skin. This card shows the pinnacle figure of the water element, the Queen of Cups at her fullest expression, completely self-possessed in the quiet authority of someone who is simply and completely herself without apology or performance. This is the card of genuine depth, of the specific quality that exists in a person who has a fully inhabited interior life that is not primarily organized around external approval or external validation. The quality of someone who is genuinely present in themselves in a way that produces a specific quality of presence in the room. What I am reading in this card about what has gotten under this person's skin is something I want to name precisely. It is your depth that they cannot resolve, not your accomplishments, not your social presentation, not the observable qualities that anyone with decent attention would notice. Your depth, the specific, quiet, genuine quality of what is happening in you underneath the surface, which this person has been catching glimpses of and which has not resolved into a complete picture despite the amount of attention they have been paying to the question. I also want to speak to the water element of this card and what it tells me about why the depth specifically is producing the preoccupation. Water is the element that cannot be fully grasped. It moves, it takes the shape of whatever it is in. It responds to pressure by flowing around it rather than stopping. A person with the specific quality of depth this card describes is not fully legible in the way that most people are legible with sufficient observation. They reveal themselves in ways that are not always predictable and not always in the expected direction. And someone who has been trying to form a complete picture of you from the observations available to them has been encountering exactly this quality of your not being fully containable in the picture they are trying to form. Does this feel like it is landing on something real, Virgo? The sense of a specific person in your life who has been paying a quality of attention to you that is more sustained and more intense than the ordinary situation would seem to require? Let me know in the comments. The third card arrived in the position representing what this person specifically does not know what to do with. the particular dimension of their experience of you that is producing the stress, rather than the simpler quality of being affected by you. And this card illuminates something I find genuinely interesting. This card shows a wheel in its turning, the ascending and descending figures, the Sphinx at the apex, governing the whole mechanism. This is the card of what cannot be controlled or reversed or managed through ordinary effort and intention, of forces that are simply operating according to their own nature, regardless of what the person who is subject to them would prefer. What I am reading in this card about what this person does not know what to do with is something I want to name specifically. What they do not know what to do with is the fact that their response to you is not under their control. That the specific quality of being disrupted by you, of having their ordinary mental equilibrium disturbed in the specific way you are disturbing it, is not something that they can address through the usual approaches of deciding to feel differently or simply choosing to redirect their attention. The wheel is turning, the response is happening, and their usual strategies for managing their own interior experience are not producing the expected result. This is uncomfortable for someone who is accustomed to managing their own interior experience effectively. The specific, slightly helpless quality of someone who has applied their usual tools to a situation and found them inadequate is part of what is producing the stress. They are not only stressed about you, they are stressed about their inability to not be stressed about you. I want to speak to something about what the wheel card is specifically confirming about the nature of your effect on this person, because I think it is worth naming clearly. The wheel operates at the level of what is structurally, fundamentally true, rather than at the level of what is circumstantially or temporarily happening. What this card is telling me is that what this person is experiencing in response to you is not a surface level reaction to specific circumstances that will simply pass when the circumstances change. It is a structural response. Something at the foundational level of their experience has been reorganized by the encounter with you, and the wheel is confirming that this reorganization is not the kind that simply undoes itself when the initial disruption of the encounter has had time to settle. The loop that is keeping them awake is not merely a short-term response to a novel stimulus. It is the early expression of something that has established itself at a level considerably deeper than short-term. Inhale with me, Virgo, because the fourth card is the one that carries what I think is the most important thing this reading has to say. This card shows the figure of genuine, quiet, self-possessed strength, the card of someone who is simply in the presence of something powerful and who is not frightened by it and is not attempting to overpower it or run from it, but is simply present with it in the specific quality of someone who has their own grounded center and who does not require the thing they are in the presence of to be smaller or simpler in order to remain grounded themselves. What I am sensing in this card about your position in this dynamic is something I want to name clearly and directly. You have done nothing wrong. You have not produced this effect in this person through any particular action or strategy or deliberate approach. You have produced it by simply being who you are in the unmanaged, genuine, this is just how I am way that is simply your nature. And the strength card appearing in this position is confirming that the appropriate posture for you in relation to what this person is experiencing is exactly the one you have been in, simply being who you are, without modification, without apologizing for the effect that has on people who encounter you, without making yourself smaller or simpler to accommodate the difficulty of being fully encountered. This is not your problem to solve. You did not create a problem. You are simply the specific quality of genuine that has encountered someone whose usual relationship to the genuine has been disrupted. I want to address something about what you actually did, or more precisely, what you did not do, because I think the subtitle of this reading, that you do not know what you did, deserves explicit engagement. You did not do anything specific. There is no action or statement or particular moment that is the cause of what this person is experiencing. The cause is simpler and more comprehensive than any specific thing you might identify. The cause is the aggregate, cumulative experience of being in your presence, of encountering over whatever period and in whatever contexts have been available, the full quality of what you are. Not any particular expression of it, but the whole of it, the way it shows up across multiple contexts and multiple interactions and multiple types of situations, the way it is consistent, the way it does not change depending on the audience or the circumstances, the way it is simply there in its full quality, regardless of whether any particular moment seems to call for it. That consistency, that quality of being fully yourself in a way that does not adjust based on what seems advantageous in any given moment, is what is so disrupting. Because most people calibrate, adjust, present strategic versions of themselves depending on context. And encountering someone who is simply, consistently, genuinely themselves is a genuinely unusual experience. An experience that the mind, once it has had it, keeps returning to because it does not fit the ordinary patterns. You did not do anything. You simply were. And simply being who you are turned out to be more than enough. I want to speak to something about why this particular quality, being consistently and genuinely yourself without apparent effort, produces the specific effect of preoccupation in people who encounter it. The ordinary social world is characterized by a quality of performance that is so universal it tends to recede into the background. People become so accustomed to the performed versions of everyone around them that they stop registering the performing as performing. It simply becomes the texture of social interaction. And then they encounter someone who is not performing, who is simply being. And the contrast, which they may not even have words for immediately, produces a specific quality of response that is different from what they have been having in ordinary social interaction. The noticing of genuineness, when it arrives, tends to be visceral rather than intellectual. It is felt before it is understood. And the feeling tends to stay and to produce the kind of returning attention that is keeping this person awake. The fifth card arrived in the position of what is going to happen as a result of the losing sleep and the stressing out. How this person's ongoing preoccupation with you is eventually going to express itself in the actual landscape between you, and I want to describe it with the full attention it deserves. This card shows a figure in the specific quality of someone who has finally emerged from a difficult interior period into a quality of clarity that was not available from inside it. The figure is rising, moving upward, holding a sword toward a clear sky. The quality of someone who has come through the murky, unresolved period and who is now on the other side of it with the specific, clean quality of someone whose processing has finally produced its result. What I am sensing in this card about what is coming is something I want to name specifically. This person is approaching the completion of the interior processing. The loop that has been keeping them awake is approaching the point where it has produced a conclusion rather than simply continuing to circulate. And what the conclusion is going to require them to do is something they have been resisting or not yet quite ready to do, which is to bring whatever has been circulating in their interior into some form of external expression in relation to you. The losing sleep is the processing. The emerging clarity is the next thing. And the clarity, once it arrives, is going to produce movement in your direction. What form that movement takes, whether it is a direct conversation or a different quality of presence or something more specific, I cannot say with precision. What I can say is that the internal resolution is approaching, and that internal resolution in this particular person about you tends toward expression rather than simply towards settling quietly. Before I close, I want to say something directly about what this reading is ultimately confirming. You are someone who produces a specific, genuine, and quite significant effect in people who encounter you, not through strategy, not through any particular thing you do, through the simple, consistent, unmanaged quality of who you are, which is more fully itself than most people who are paying attention have encountered, and which consequently disrupts the ordinary patterns of their interior experience in ways they were not prepared for and do not always know what to do with. The lost sleep is the evidence of the effect. The stress is the evidence of the significance. And the not knowing what you did is the evidence of the genuineness, because the response has not been produced by a performance that can be identified and analyzed. It has been produced by the real version of you simply existing in someone's proximity. That is not your problem to manage. That is simply what it looks like when someone encounters something they have not previously encountered in quite that form. Continue being exactly what you are. The clarity on the other side of their processing is going to land somewhere real. I want to name one more thing before we close, because I think it is worth saying plainly. The specific, slightly disorienting experience this person is having of being unable to stop thinking about you, of not being able to identify a specific cause for the effect you are having, of their usual self-management tools not working in relation to you, is a genuinely unusual experience for most people to have. Most disruptions resolve through ordinary processing. Most fascinations complete their arc and become ordinary. The fact that this one has not, the fact that it keeps returning, the fact that the processing has not yet produced the resolution that processing usually produces, is itself the information. It is telling this person something about the nature of what they have encountered in you, and that something is significant enough that the mind cannot simply file it and move on. If this reading named something you have been sensing in a specific person's energy toward you, the particular quality of someone whose attention has been more than ordinarily focused on you in a way that carries a specific quality of intensity or preoccupation, please share it with Virgo who might be experiencing the same thing and who needs to hear that the effect they are having is not incidental. And leave a comment. I want to hear who this is about for you and what you have been sensing. I read every single comment, and I hold what is shared in this space with genuine care long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo, someone is awake right now thinking about you. You did not do anything specific to produce this. You simply were who you are. And who you are turned out to be something that does not let go easily once it has been encountered. That is yours. It always was.